Dylnn's log, 2010-17. So now the Cannoneer, Cajun, trying to back up Arthur on the computer systems, noticed that there were a number of systems that were monitoring the status, output, whatever, of a particular system. And that particular system had cybernetic type um, input output to it. And that caught his attention. Meanwhile, Powered Arc comes up. I put the flamer on auto and I just start burning it down. I was able to get a few scorch marks on it, and its shield did pop up, but I was able to keep it down while Reynald behind me open fires with his blast pistol, although he was pretty slow about that. The powered armor, the arm with the multi-tool, goes to grasp me, almost got my arm. I just pulled it out the last minute, but in the process of doing that, did something with the flamer. My grip got all hosed up, and Arthur continues blasting at it, but then it turns and starts heading, I assume, towards Arthur and Cajun, because it's going that direction. So I follow and trace, forget about the flamer, and pull out my duralloy dagger, and I start thinking, okay, I've done some tech on powered armor. Where's a spot where I can find a weakness to like pop open a panel or something to do some kind of damage to this thing, because I'm getting ready to jump on his back and start trying to jury rig some damage on it. Turns out that Arthur went the other direction. So when the powered armor came back around, and it's moving pretty slow, so we can catch up to it pretty quick. And it's going around the corner, and it's starting to zero in on Arthur and Cajun. He's there blasting at it. And then I go and I don't see anything. This is a model I've never come across before. Of course, it is 150 years old, right, or 300 years old maybe, or something. So I'm just looking for a spot on it, and then we hear Arthur and Cajun pull weapons and start blasting at something. It turns out they had isolated where this cybernetic system was, and figuring that it's some kind of artificial intelligence has been running the ship. Start blasting at it. Eventually, able to damage enough that liquid and gray ooze and stuff pouring out of the box, and everything shuts down. Now, there has not been real power in the ship itself. We've been running on dark rocket, working off of our light beams off our helms and that kind of thing. But this computer system was actively doing a lot of things, and then it dropped down to just some basic, like that monitoring system is still running, but it's showing a flat line. So we start piecing stuff together. And I start checking these guys' reactions on this whole artificial intelligence thing to see how they react. And they're actually pretty well. We were all freaking out when the powered armor came up, right? But the fact that having killed the ship's AI, there's some kind of horror movie kind of thing going on, and they're all we are all reacting that way. So can't quite get a feel for how they may react in the future to other artificial intelligence information. But from there, we start looking for some kind of backup bridge or secondary computer core, that kind of thing. And we figure it's going to be probably near engineering, which is down on C deck. So we go into the bridge. We can see how the bridge layout is. There's a couple of shafts that go down. One of them we're able to manually get moving, or was open or something. Well, anyway, we were able to go down one of them. get down to C deck, start looking around, behind us, going back towards engineering, 'cause that's where I'm going, because I want to find out what is mounted at the mounting brackets that we had mapped out back in the boneyard on the other skeleton of a ship like this. But as we start heading south, right there's a secondary control point. So Arthur's sitting on that, trying to um, reboot the system and disconnect anything that was connected to the AI. And we head back to engineering. I'm looking for this spot and say, everybody, come here. What is this? Because this is what we were supposed to find the mounting configuration for when we went to the boneyard. What is this thing? And Tajin, does some analysis kind of stuff and goes, it's some kind of a shield generator, but it's even higher tech than the rest of the ship. And the rest of the ship is higher tech than anything we've dealt with. And we figure it's probably normal for the Corellians, but above us. But this thing uh, is even more. And from that point, we just do a sweep of the ship. Port to starboard, aft, stern to aft. Stern is aft, right? Well, no, stern's to front. Aft to stern, deck to deck. We go through the whole thing, and we start gathering weapons and all kinds of stuff. One really cool thing I did find, though, was in the captain's quarters, he had one of those wall safe things that was hidden. We got a kind of torch, pop that thing open, and there was 40,000 Corellian credits in cash. Wow. And there was also this large silver square thing that we pop open, and inside it is a writ of authority or a warrant of authority. Essentially, it says that the bearer of this warrant is acting on the behalf of the emperor. Give him any and all assistance needed. Whoa! Now, we're just humans, so how likely is that to happen? I don't know. But having this in our back pocket just in case could be a get out of jail free card. So everybody's freaking out on that. It's not dated, but the emperor's signature on it is, obviously 150 years old kind of thing. But it refers to certain Corellian statutes. If those statutes are still valid, this should still be valid. There are two universal sizing vac suits. Guess that means that they adjust. That's kind of interesting. There's some flamers, there's ACRs, there's auto pistols, there's blasters, blaster rifles, a blaster light machine gun. That's going to come in handy someday. No Gauss rifles or a Gauss pistol. I was really hoping the commander would have a Gauss pistol we could find, but it doesn't. Oh, there's some personal grenade launchers and some personal missile launchers. Obviously, things that I'm assuming attached to the powered armor. And Tajin, like I, had been involved with MI, so he is all hot and bothered about this powered armor. He's been inside pulling servos out and stuff, trying to refurbish is not the right word, but to detail it. There we go. Detail it, taking all the stuff out, cleaning it up, that kind of thing. And we move all that stuff over to the Goblin. We used the Goblin. Oh, the air raft on the ship has been modified, so we're going to take that to put that on the Goblin, because the Goblin has an air raft space. Oh, the Marquis Revenge has an air raft space too, but that's where we have our armored personnel carrier. So once we do that, we bring some computer kind of stuff to help do some repairs. But this, as the guys that do that kind of stuff are going, hey, we'll just bypass the main computer core and just run off the secondary until some real repairs are going to, because it's going to take some major repairs to that thing that we don't have. Oh, we should have printers and stuff that can do the components needed. But anyway, they are not worried about the main computer core. They're working off of the secondary computer core. We get all the systems up. We funnel some fuel onto the Cannoneer. We take the Goblin. We do some scooping at the gas giant. Come back and we just ferry fuel to the Cannoneer and allow its internal fuel processors to refine it and get her fueled up. Get the Goblin fueled up, and then we micro jump to the Marquis Revenge, and in that process, while we're at the Marquis Revenge and we're starting to set up to do this jump back, that raises some questions. And so I take Reynald and Tage and I sit them down and go, guys, if the first time that we met, when Dr. Dylnn put us together and went out to the pirate planet, I had told you that I had psionic abilities, what would you have done? Tage is fairly open-minded, and he says that he's seen some weird stuff, and he says things and even weirder stuff. He would have been taken back, but it wouldn't really have surprised him, and now he had no surprise whatsoever. Even though he hasn't been able to open up any of his own talents. And Tajin didn't quite address that, but he said that since then enough has happened that he knows he's going to hell, so nothing at this point would surprise him. And what other secrets am I hiding? You know, that kind of thing. That's why I asked Jean if she'll come in. She comes in. Tajin looks at her, walks over. She goes to shake his hand, obviously, but she's a projection, and so it goes right through it. And then there's some discussion on projection stuff. As we're talking about, yeah, the ship's full of projectors for her to move around and stuff. And I tell them, okay, this is not the AI. This is what's protecting the AI. And there's some, Jean sits down, we have a little discussion. We bring out the Forerunner device, put it on the table. This is how Jean was able to psionically connect with the AI and is inside the box somehow. There's some question about how big the box is, how people can go in there, that kind of thing. I thought, hey, we have visited. I've been inside. We had like three of the crew members actually visit with Jean and the AI inside the box. But the guys are not interested in that kind of thing. We'll go and put the box back. Oh, I do discuss, once we get back to the Goblin and the Marquis, back to the Marquis Revenge, I do bring Tajin over to the Marquis Revenge, show him the ECM modules. Okay, this I think is one of the things that I can use to leverage Dr. Dylnn's folks to actually stand up against the Corellians. This ECM is designed to bypass Corellian sensors. Take a look at it. Is there a way we can replicate it and get it onto the Cannoneer? He says, you know, this is above his level, but he can tell this stuff can make the ship practically invisible to Corellian sensors, possibly even during a fight kind of thing. So he was really impressed, but there's no way that with what we have here we'll be able to replicate everything that would be needed for this to put it on the Cannoneer. Well, anyway, although I'm thinking we still need to do that to the Goblin. Even though the Goblin is a stealth ship, we should do what we can to do what we can. So we set up everything. We do the jump to our our deep space depot spot where we always leave the goblin. Um, and then we take the mark. Oh, we leave the cannoneer there, and we take the Marquis Revenge. We jump into Mate 2. Um, meet with Dr. Dylnn. We have some discussion on things. We just it was. We got the ship. Um, and I start talking about one of the reasons I'm in this sector is to find groups willing to stand up with us against the Corellians. And in my previous discussions with Dr. Dylnn, his folks are not willing to do that because every time they do, they get smacked down by the Corellians. And so I take him over to the Marquis Revenge. I show him the ECM module, give him some diagnostic tools. Say, while I can't leave you this, we should be able to get schematics from his sensors to reverse engineer. But this module will make your folks' ships invisible to the Corellians. Is that enough to convince your folks that we have a chance to stand up? And he's still very, very hesitant about that. He says, I can't vouch for him. I'm not asking to vouch. I'm just looking for potential that I can go back to my people and say, hey, there are folks here. If we can give them this and we can give them that, that may be enough. But his concern is about having, do we have enough ships to make a stand up? And I have no idea how many ships are out here that he and his folks could, reach out and touch, that kind of thing. And then we do a jump to the cannoneer. We get on, okay, this is the shield generator that you want us the mounting brackets and measurements for. This is it. Take a look. Do your diagnostics. Which reminds me, we did while we were before we jumped in. We had Jean come over, take a look at it. She was able to do some, not make diagrams and diagnostics of it, but to be able to map to map what goes in, what comes out, kind of thing. Give us a better feel for this thing cycles much more quickly and is much more powerful than what is normal for a ship this size. And she and so we know that. We hand it over to Dr. Dylnn, and he says, I can make it worth your while if you leave the ship here. I would really love to, but I can't do that. Now, what I can promise is that when I get back to my people, that we're going to need to cough up the schematics of this thing to you and your people to help convince you to stand up with us against the Corellians. And I think that's still valid. So he sends hyperspace probe kind of thing, a way to communicate with him once we get system. And then he talks with Tajin and Reynald and Arthur. Hey, you guys represent me to Dylnn and his folks in their sector. Are you willing to do that? They all agree. Oh, Robin's not really his girl, but she agrees to come with us too. And we ask Kira if she wants to come along too. She's really kind of iffy, but she doesn't want to stay here by herself. So all of us pile on the Marquis Revenge, jump to deep space with the Cannoneer and the Marquis Revenge. We slave the Marquis Revenge and the Goblin, and then we do this mutual jump thing to the drop-off point that we were given in deep space, forward in our sector. We jump there, we do some scans, we don't see or anything. The next day, I do notice something metallic out there. We kind of move in on it. It's some kind of a satellite of some sort. So we figure, okay, it'll take a week. It probably had some kind of hyper uh, space communications module that jumped to wherever it needed to go. Hey, they're there. It'll take a week for that to happen, a week for them to get to us. We figure we got a couple of weeks. We just kind of start twiddling our thumbs. And 4 days later, and that's got me thinking something else is going on. 4 days later, a 600-ton destroyer shows up. I identify myself as the Valley Forge. I identify myself as the Marquis Revenge. There's a female voice on the other side, and it sounds familiar, but I can't quite place it. And then she asks, "Dylnn, is that you?" Yes. Who are you? And I hear a voice in the background. It doesn't sound like he recognizes your voice. And that was Phil, the scientist guy, from that original crew that found me on the bug planet in the cut up science ship. Um, uh, and so I put together, this is Vanessa, who was the first real friend that I had with the ASL people. Um, and in my new life. So that was cool. She has to come aboard. We all get on board the Cannoneer. We do a walkthrough, show her everything. Um, and then she's got her orders to take this, take it somewhere else. And to give us directions to go ahead and go back to Baphomet and the what's it called? Monte Carlo with the Sports Club, home to me now with this new life for some R&R. She does a really brief kind of report from everybody else. Who are you? Who do you work for? How do you fit in this whole thing? How have you been dealing with Dylnn? So she has a feel for us and all the things that we've done. I do mention that to Vanessa before we're departing the ship that I have seen Eldorath. And she gets a reaction of that and feels close enough that he hears. She goes, "We're going to have to talk more about that." I said, "Let's do that over dinner." And so says, "Yes, meet us over on the Valley Forge for dinner tonight." And we do, and there's dinner. And it's actually very, very good, for a destroyer. Oh, and she's all dressed up in the same CSA military uniforms, like a lieutenant that ran into, or that were being used by the Rebel Alliance on New Delhi. So she's been drinking the Kool-Aid here, that's for sure. She does mention there's been some activity with another race, Corward here. I think might be the sorry, I keep forgetting what that race is called. Oh, the Regal. That might be the Regal. There's also been an increase in activity with the Anzaraki here. I mentioned, yeah, we've got activity in the other sector with the Anzaraki as well. And so I start, during dinner, I do the Maliki ring thing on Vanessa and Phil. And I can tell that Vanessa has already made contact with Maliki, that she's got a relationship already. So I'm not sure how that happened. And that's the story I'd like to get. Um, and there's some discussion about all Vanessa wants is to get back to Eldorath, and I know that ever since I first ran into her, her entire um, secondary mission, other than day to day, what do we need to do, has been how do we get back to Eldorath? How do we get back to Eldorath? Dealing with the witch woman and the little pseudo dragon things and the swords and discussing and trying to spark some kind of memories in these folks of what they had in the past. And that reminds me that the way that they got here was through walking a henge. And so I pull out the card, the little 3D card's got the little henge module on it and stuff. And I say, what did I say? Maybe something like this. And I hand to her, and they're looking at it, and they're freaking out, going, "This is the henge in front of Hamlet." And we talk about how I got that from a Kazinti ship, and at that, they all look at Kira. And I say, I look at the kitten, look at the kitten. These six-legged cats with the paws. The witch woman had one as some kind of super pet. And I've seen these creatures pretty much everywhere. Although I don't think I saw them on Procyon. That's interesting. I'm going to have to talk with Robin about that. Because there may be a connection with these cats, psionics in general. And obviously some kind of connection with Vanessa and Eldorath and all that kind of stuff. And so we start discussing, okay, if we're going to go to Monte Carlo, what do we do with Kira? And Vanessa says that there's a safe place that we can take her. And Robin asks, what do you mean by a safe place? He says, there's no Corellian presence. So they found another lost colony planet. And she got anxious about that. But Robin and Kira decide to go with Vanessa to this non-Corellian safe space that they can go to. And then we go to Baphomet. We drop the goblin off in deep space en route. Vanessa does say that she was given a direction about a third ship that may complicate things. And I tell her, I'm trying to keep the goblin a secret, and what is capable of a secret. Because you're not going to be able to keep that from the count. I go, yeah, no, I'm willing to share that with the count, but I don't want anybody else to know about it. And if I would have thought about it beforehand, we should have dropped out in space 3 light years out, dropped the goblin there, and then micro jumped in with the Kinnear and the Marquis' Revenge. Sometimes I don't think things through. But we leave the goblin in deep space. We get to Baphomet. We're directed to the Marquis' Revenge is directed to a landing platform and hangar on Monte Carlo, and then we get a show ride to the Sportsman's Club, and I show the guys our pad. We've got a complimentary 10,000 credit in the casino, and just discuss briefly with the guys, what's here on Monte Carlo. End log. So, some interesting things for this session. For example, I personally did not know that the Count was in fact the Marquis. Someone spent share everything with the Marquis, but the Marquis has been killed, been in hiding. But a couple sessions I must have missed early on when we first went to the Procyon sector was that the Count, which is the Marquis' heir, is in fact the Marquis. Same actual person, although he stand up as the Count, and has been running things. So we've had some contact with him and stuff like that. He had fed me the directions on where to drop the ship because I didn't know that. I thought we were just going to go drop back to Baphomet myself. No, you were given directions on where to drop this thing off. Oh, okay. So a couple things I need to discuss with him. And I don't know if he knows anything about psionics. I need to broach that with him. I need to see about getting schematics for the ECM and get that sent to Dr. Dylnn and his people, and see about getting schematics for the shield generator from the Kinnear, and get schematics for that and get that sent to Dr. Dylnn's people as incentives for Dr. Dylnn's people to do a stand-up and set up some communication kind of thing, and see where we go from here. And we are hitting 30 minutes. Sorry, guys, a long one. Happy gaming.